What's going on? Welcome into the Chiefs Zone Podcast. Farzim Sugan here with you on this Wednesday night as we continue to await some news in the head coaching searches. Plus, we learn about a Chief on the active roster who got surgery. We will get into that shortly and discuss what that means and talk a little bit more time on that player. And that player, of course, is Xavier Worthy. He confirmed today that he has underwent successful shoulder surgery. So we'll talk about that, what that really means. Can we expect improvement for Xavier Worthy? And I want to know how you guys feel about Xavier Worthy at this moment right now. Talking about the head coaching search across the NFL and when can we expect something from Kansas City? We have yet to see the Chiefs make some moves or really submit any interviews, requests for interviews from other teams. I think that'll change real soon, and I'll explain why. A lot to get into here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. This episode is brought to you by SeatGeek. That's where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs, concerts, whatever it is you want to attend. SeatGeek is the place to go. If you're a new SeatGeek customer, all you've got to do is use my promo code FARZINE and save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. So when you select your tickets, you get your event that you want to go to at checkout in the promo area. Use my promo code FARZINE if you're a new SeatGeek customer. All right. Let's get into it. No, a lot of you guys are starting to grow a little impatient with the Kansas City Chiefs at this moment. And everyone's wondering, when will we see the Chiefs do something? When will we hear news that the Chiefs will submit an interview request for somebody? When are we going to get any of that? A lot of you guys have been asking that in the last, let's say 24 to 48 hours. Look, I know everyone wants something done now. The only significant news we've really received with the coaching staff is that Connor Embry was let go and Matt Nagy has interviewed with 4 different teams. Interviewed with the Titans, the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Ravens so far. Now, I know Andy Reid mentioned this earlier, the day after the season ended against the Raiders, was mentioning that the Chiefs, with certain contract rules and whatnot, certain in-person interviews cannot be done until the 19th. Now, you're seeing some people do Zoom interviews. That's not really much right now. A lot of that is just a feeling out process. The only coaches who can do in-person interviews as of right now, which is the 14th, not the 19th yet, are coaches who are not under contract. John Harbaugh, he got fired. He's not under contract with the Ravens. He is free to go wherever he wants. And we did learn today he had a lengthy in-person interview with the New York Giants. And there seems to be some traction between the New York Giants and John Harbaugh at the moment. Seems like a good place for Harbaugh to go to. I know the Giants feel pretty good about their personnel for the future with Jackson Stark, Cam Scadaboo coming back from injury. A lot of good young players, Abdul Carter on that team. I also know Tennessee maybe doesn't feel this way from the outside, but according to reports out there, and I know Jordan Schultz put this out there, it seems like Tennessee is actually a more enticing job than a lot of people realize. I know Cam Ward was not the most exciting football player this year for a guy who was the number 1 pick and playing the quarterback position. But if the right coaching staff is there, then the expectation is in Tennessee that Cam Ward will thrive and the Tennessee Titans can turn into a competitive football team. So we'll have to see. Yeah, John says he is beyond impatient, but they will clean it up. I see what you did there, John. I see what you did there. Mickey says it kind of scares me that they will bring Nagy back if he doesn't get a head coaching job. I'm concerned Andy is going to dig in his heels and keep Nagy, Stacy says. Okay, so everyone is concerned that Nagy could end up coming back. Here's what I will say. I remember right before the Raiders game, The reports came out from NFL Network that if Nagy does not get a head coaching job, he's going to want to pursue an offensive coordinator job elsewhere in the NFL that will allow him to be the play caller. Now, would he consider going to the college ranks to be an offensive coordinator if there are no opportunities for him in the NFL? I don't know. But I think he really wants to have play calling duties. He had that when he was in Chicago. Didn't have that when he was in Kansas City. His first stint, like the last 4 to 5 games, but that was really it. Now, when will the Chiefs do something? And why has the lack of activity from the Chiefs been a thing? Why aren't we seeing the Chiefs go out there and submit interview requests for coaches? Kafka, as far as I know, so if you let me put it to you like this: there are 9 NFL head coaching vacancies right now. However, and I know the website is not the most reputable, if you will, but it actually is accurate. If you go to the Wikipedia for NFL head coaches, current head coaches, it'll show you 7 teams do not have a head coach. Now, technically, that's wrong. It's 9 teams. However, contractually speaking, that is accurate. Because remember, Mike McCoy, he is technically, at the moment, the interim head coach for the Tennessee Titans. And Mike Kafka, for right now, is the interim head coach for the New York Giants. So until the Giants and the Titans actually hire a new coach, contractually, they don't have a vacancy, if that makes any sense. Now, why am I making a big deal out of this? Because it's been a thing for a while now that the Chiefs would either consider either Eric Bieniemy or Mike Kafka to bring back to Kansas City. Now, obviously, Bieniemy was once an offensive coordinator with the Chiefs, and Kafka was the quarterback's coach and the passing game coordinator during his time here in Kansas City. Now, Kafka, even though Daboll is fired, Kafka is still under contract with the Giants. So he technically cannot be interviewing with other teams, the way I've had it explained to me, until the 19th. Eric Bieniemy at the moment is still coaching with the Chicago Bears. Now, if the Bears lose, well, the next day ends up being the 19th anyway. But it would make it a lot easier for Kansas City to be able to speak to Bieniemy and Kafka if that's the route they want to go. I think the universal thought here is Andy Reid generally does not get players from outside of his coaching tree. We saw him go back to Matt Nagy. Some Chiefs fans were okay with it. Some Chiefs fans were not, given what happened to him in Chicago. Look who he brought in as his defensive coordinator after firing Bob Sutton. It was Steve Spagnuolo. Spagnuolo was with the Eagles from 1999 to 2006 before becoming the defensive coordinator of the Giants. And then that led to him being the head coach of the Rams. So Spags is a guy that's worked with Andy Reid before. Kafka and Bieniemy, the reason those two are the universal favorites at top 2, I don't know who 1 would be. I don't know who 2 would be. I guess that's up for discussion, but there's a reason why those are the 2 heavy favorites. And whoever number 3 is, there's a big gap between 2 and 3. I would imagine 3 is Doug Peterson. I don't know. I know not a lot of people have been putting that name out there. I have. He would not be my top option. I said this last night on the podcast. My number 1 pick would be Eric Bieniemy. Number 2 would be Mike Kafka. So I would not be upset if Kafka came back. Just would prefer Bieniemy over Kafka. But it seems that with the Chiefs being very quiet for their offensive coordinator search, I mean, a lot of people were wondering if Mike McDaniel would come to Kansas City or whether or not the Chiefs would even consider him. And so far, we haven't even seen the Chiefs consider anyone, McDaniel included. Now, Tyreek Hill did say publicly in response to a Chiefs fan that McDaniel doesn't fit Andy's scheme, so it wouldn't even work anyway. Okay. All right. We'll take that for what it's worth to you. So it appears that McDaniel is already being contacted by Detroit and a couple of other teams for offensive coordinator roles. I don't know if McDaniel has received a lot of calls about interviewing for head coaching vacancies. Maybe yes, maybe no. I haven't paid too much attention to his activity. But the word is that the Detroit Lions want to look at him for their offensive coordinator vacancy. That's something to be aware of. So I know a lot of people have been wondering, why aren't the Chiefs being active? Just be patient. Look, I think this is going to be one of the more interesting coaching cycles. I think every coaching cycle can be unique in its own way, but because of the Harbaugh firing and also Tomlin, it appears Tomlin's not going to coach, but I don't think that's going to stop teams from wanting to try to convince him to come into their team. But more so on the Harbaugh front, you're not going to see a lot of hirings become official until John Harbaugh gets hired. And that goes for assistant coaches. Now, there might be a couple of teams that don't care what ends up, like the Baltimore Ravens. They're obviously not bringing back Harbaugh. So the Baltimore Ravens can step forward and make their official offer once they feel confident after their second round of interviews. The problem is, let's say the Giants have heavy interest in Harbaugh. And I'll use Matt Nagy as an example. I know Nagy has not interviewed with the Giants yet, but let's say Nagy wants to wait it out for the Giants job, because that is kind of an enticing place to go to with the young guys that they have on their team. Well, Nagy's not going to accept the job anywhere else until he realizes the Giants job is out of reach for him, meaning that Harbaugh would go there. So, and we discussed this the other day. Harbaugh officially accepting a job is probably going to be the first domino for this coaching cycle. Once he accepts a job, I think you're going to start to see a heavy trend of other head coaches and even assistant coaches getting hired shortly afterwards. How many more head coaches do I think will be fired? I mean, of the teams that are in the playoffs right now, Broncos, Patriots, they could both lose. Nothing would happen. Same with the Seahawks. Same with the 49ers are not going to fire Shanahan. I know he's had some disappointing endings to a season with the 49ers, but he's still got, what, a 9-4 playoff record? Yeah, they're not letting him go. Rams are not letting go of McVay. The Buffalo Bills, oh boy. You lose, and I know the Bills are on the road, but you lose that game, and I think there are going to be questions of, if not now, when will you win with McDermott? And listen, even if the Bills lose an AFC championship game, I'm not going to dismiss the possibility of firing McDermott, but I think he has a better chance of keeping his job if you can reach the AFC championship game. So, look, I think the Bills are going to win this weekend. But if the Bills lose, I do think McDermott's out. And I think Harbaugh would immediately take the Bills job before any other job. He will do a first interview with the Bills. Then he'll be the first guy for the second round of interviews. And then they'll, as much as I hate to say it, they will interview whoever they need to interview to fulfill the Rooney Rule request. And once they fulfill that obligation, they'll just officially hire Harbaugh. Like, if the Bills fire McDermott, every single candidate is going to want to go to the Bills. Listen, it's not going to be a very long conversation. I mean, technically it will be, but a lot of teams are going to really sell, a lot of candidates are going to sell themselves to want to get that Buffalo Bills job if it opens up. If it opens up, that is. I think the expectation was, if the Bills laid an egg against the Jaguars, then McDermott was going to get fired, and you would see the Bills getting all kinds of big names for interviews. Listen, as much as there's a rumor out there that Tomlin's going to take a break, do you think Tomlin would turn down the opportunity to coach Josh Allen? I don't think so. That's the only coach I could see getting let go if the Bills lose this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. All right. So the big news today with the Kansas City Chiefs, Xavier Worthy revealed this evening that he had successful shoulder surgery. He posted a picture on Instagram of his arm in a sling, and he shared that on X as well. Now, as you all remember, in week 1, he collided with Travis Kelce, and unfortunately, he suffered a torn labrum during that collision. He missed 3 games, including that Chargers game, because it happened on the 3rd snap of the game. And Worthy, when he came back, looked pretty good against the Baltimore Ravens. But unfortunately, that was the only good game he had this season. Worthy in 2024, his rookie year, pretty good rookie campaign. 742 yards of total offense, 638 of them being receiving, 104 on the ground. 9 total touchdowns in the regular season. In the playoffs, he had 287 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, be very well aware, those are misleading postseason numbers, as nice as it is for him. He had 157 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Those were garbage time stats. Hate to say it, but that is exactly what it was for the Chiefs. I mean, they were going up against Philly's backups by then in the 4th quarter. Now, let's just look at the regular season numbers. He had 500. Let me take that back a bit. He had 638 receiving yards, average just under 11 yards a catch. In 2025, he had fewer receiving yards, 532, but he had a higher yards per catch average. He averaged 12.7 yards a catch, almost 13 yards a catch. So almost 2 whole yards more than the previous year. But he only found the end zone once. Now, I see Kyle's comment here. I'm disappointed that Worthy didn't get that surgery done sooner. The health of that man is important. Yeah, I think listen, here's my thing on why he may not have done surgery. And I could be wrong here, and I'm speculating. My thought was the Chiefs have invested so much in that wide receiver trio with Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown. They brought him back, and Xavier Worthy. Unfortunately, EGE did not pan out. Everybody got to eat did not work. It was a failure. It led to guys wanting to eat, or at least they stayed hungry. Now, I got a question for you guys. Do you believe in Xavier Worthy for 2026? Where is your confidence level in Xavier? What are your thoughts on Xavier Worthy? Because I see the criticism out there, and I'm seeing some people even say it right now with his weight and his size. I believe in Xavier Worthy. Listen, in this Andy Reid offensive scheme, Xavier Worthy can do a lot of great things. And I think we saw it in his rookie season. We didn't get to see much of that this year. And I don't know how much of it was him being limited with the torn labrum. But in that Colts game, him and Rashee Rice, I mean, those two had a great game in helping the Chiefs come back against the Colts. That was their last win, unfortunately. Their only win during the, second half of the season? After the bye week, if I recall correctly. So with this Chiefs team, you need Xavier Worthy. I think Xavier Worthy is an important piece of your future. You traded up to get him, so you can't just give up on him easily. Yes, he dealt with injuries, and that is a concern. I mean, he had the ankle, he had the shoulder. I mean, he dealt with multiple injuries in 2025. Now, listen, what if it was Tyreek Hill? Tyreek Hill, yeah, is a small guy, but he's also physically, more bulkier than Xavier Worthy. Would Tyreek Hill have survived that collision against Travis Kelce? I don't know. I'm only using Tyreek Hill as an example because he's a former Chief and a small guy with similar skill set to Xavier Worthy. I don't know. But what I do know is this is a player the Chiefs really like. They didn't trade up to get him for no reason. They feel like he is someone who bodes well in this offensive scheme with Patrick Mahomes. Now, there are some things that Worthy's got to work on. His route running, connection between him and Mahomes, and I think Mahomes has to improve on that as well with the deep pass game. He's got to get better about keeping his feet in bounds. I mean, Worthy has not shown any progress whatsoever in games when it comes to sideline awareness. And I don't know how much of that has to do with Connor Embry, who was let go earlier this year. I know that was talked about recently with Nate Taylor and some of the interviews he's done. And when Connor Embry was let go, Nate Taylor also said the wide receivers were actually getting frustrated with Embry. So I just wonder right now with the Chiefs, is having a better wide receivers coach going to help Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy grow and become top 10 receivers, grow and improve on their weaknesses? Because both Rice and Worthy have the potential to become top 10 receivers. And I think we've seen them showcase that. But you've got to do it on a consistent basis, and you've got to be available. Rice has missed a lot of time due to injuries and a suspension. And we don't know what's going to happen with this latest DV accusation. Seems like this is going in Rice's favor for now, but it's maybe a little too early to say. Worthy, he's got to stay healthy. And I think the reason why you have the trio, or you had the trio of Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice, the idea was you don't heavily rely on one single individual in your wide receiver room. You can distribute the ball well and get a lot of guys involved. And, I kind of hope Tyquan Thornton becomes a part of that in 2026. Why did the Chiefs bring in Sammy Watkins in 2018? Because they did not want Tyreek Hill to be the number one primary receiver. Now, fortunately for the Chiefs, and that was Patrick's first year as a starter, they had Travis Kelce in his prime. They had Tyreek Hill in his prime. They had Sammy Watkins, not necessarily in his prime, but he wasn't necessarily old and washed up at the time either, to where he was able to contribute in a big manner. Yes, Sammy Watkins had an injury history coming into Kansas City in 2018, but he was not the number one highly relied upon wide receiver. And even though Tyreek Hill, I think it was 2018. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was 2019 when Tyreek Hill missed the first 5 games, including the first game of the season where he got hurt during that first half against Jacksonville. Sammy Watkins became the number one wide receiver on the team. But it wasn't just the Sammy Watkins show at that position. They utilized McCole Hardman. They utilized DeMarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle. They were able to distribute the ball to a lot of different receivers. And unfortunately, we did not see that this year. And again, the hill I'm willing to die on is that this Chiefs offense had the wide receivers to succeed. Now, Xavier Worthy played through a torn labrum, so he was clearly limited on his capabilities. Rashee Rice was suspended for the first 6 games, and when he came back, he just wasn't the same receiver. We only saw him and Worthy thrive in 1 game, and that was the Colts game. Now, Worthy, had 2 solid games. The other one was against the Baltimore Ravens. But by the way, in that Colts game, Worthy had 4 catches for 59 yards. Doesn't sound like a lot, but he had some crucial receptions in the fourth quarter and in overtime to help the Chiefs tie and eventually win against the Colts. So Hollywood Brown, look, I know he was great at one point in his career. I still think there's an opportunity for him to excel in Kansas City, hopefully under a better offensive coordinator. That I truly believe. Listen, I've already showed you guys the information, and I'll do it one more time just for the sake of backing myself up here. Look at these numbers here. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Patrick Mahomes' numbers, nowhere near as good. compared to when Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator. Same with the Chiefs offense as a whole. Now, I recognize once Patrick went out, those numbers dropped drastically. So I'll say this. When Mahomes did go out, the Chiefs ranked 15th in scoring, which is the same the other 2 years Nagy was the offensive coordinator. So again, I still chalk it up to having a better offensive coordinator. Sure, Andy Reid's the play caller. We all know that. Alex Smith was talking about that on Kay Adams' show, but this is still a team that needs an offensive coordinator to be the enforcer, to be the bad cop. That's what Bieniemy did. How would Kafka do in that role coming back to Kansas City? I don't know. But I truly do believe that if they have a better offensive coordinator than Matt Nagy, this Chiefs team, with their wide receiver group specifically, and we don't know who's going to come back, I think will thrive. If you can bring back Hollywood Brown and Tyquan Thornton, you're going to have a good receiving core. I believe that. I really do. Juju would be just fine to bring back for depth purposes. Jalen Royals, got to start getting him involved. You drafted him for a reason. Let's see it. Because we didn't see much. What did he have? Just one pass? Maybe two? Maybe two. If you want him to be great, we can't damage his potential. He wasn't the same with that injury, and you saw that. I love Worthy, but his health is important. Yeah, fair enough. I agree with that. Looks like AJ Brown is going to be available. Oh boy, is that something the Chiefs really want to experiment with, though, Bob? How do you guys feel? Do you guys believe in Xavier Worthy? Is this a guy you think can rebound in 2026? Because I say yes. Now, I'll admit that's me being more hopeful that he can stay healthy and that he lives up to his potential. I'm a little concerned as to whether or not he can make that progress. Now, with a new wide receivers coach and hopefully a better offensive coordinator, could we maybe see a different Xavier Worthy? That is what I'm banking on. That's what I'm really hoping for. Instead of Hollywood and Juju for a third year, let's bring in someone new, draft or even free agency. And like, imagine Romeo Doubs on the Chiefs. Yeah, but how much is Romeo Doubs going to cost you, Kyle? You have to be, yeah, he'd be great, but you got to be aware of the salary cap. Yes, we're going to wait and see what the number is going to be, but man, they have a lot of work to do. I'm telling you right now, do not be surprised if this is going to be a very quiet free agency for Kansas City because of their salary cap situation. They keep restructuring Patrick Mahomes' deal. Now, unless he signs a brand new deal, like a new extension to add one more year onto it, then yeah, that big cap number will go away. But for right now, he's still got that big cap hit. And that's something Kansas City has to figure out for this year and next year. Because the Chiefs are in a bind with the salary cap for the next 2 years. And it's not good. What the hell are they scared to use Thornton and Royals? Dude, this is like an unsolved mystery that I don't know if we'll ever get the answer to. Why didn't we see more of Thornton? Yes, I understand that Worthy came back, and I understand that Rice came back, but you don't just drop someone's playing time who was effective. He averaged 23 yards a catch. I mean, you just can't all of a sudden not use this guy anymore. Like, we barely saw Thornton once Worthy came back, and it made no sense. It made absolutely no sense. What about Kingsbury? Well, it doesn't sound like the Chiefs have reached out to try to get him. So I don't think the Chiefs are interested. Yes, Kingsbury has a connection to Mahomes. We get that. Kingsbury does not have a connection to Andy Reid. So as much as a lot of people want Kingsbury to reunite with Patrick Mahomes and try to maybe reinvent that high-powered Texas Tech offense, it's not an Andy Reid connection. And like I said a few minutes ago, Andy Reid does not go outside of his tree often. For his defensive coordinator after Bob Sutton, he brought in Spags, someone who he was well connected with in Philly. We should have developed a point of attack every game with our receivers. Some OCs don't know what to do when you have too many speedsters, spread the rock tempo. Yeah, and I think that's what we should have seen these last 2 years. Last year, there were all those injuries, so we never really got to see it. Worthy was kind of learning on the fly as a rookie. DeAndre Hopkins learning on the fly, coming into a system that he wasn't really familiar with. It just wasn't an ideal situation at all for the Chiefs, especially with all that hype with the wide receiver room last year, and they didn't live up to it this year. Now, let's say they bring back Hollywood Brown and hopefully Tyquan Thornton. Fingers crossed, but if everyone stays healthy, you might go into week one having all four of those receivers available for you for the first time ever. Now, will Patrick Mahomes be available in week one? Listen, I know everyone believes in Mahomes and how tough he is and how he's built different. I get that, but it's a torn ACL he's coming back from, in mid-December. That's not an ideal timeline. So we have to be open to the fact that there's a chance he might play in week one and a chance he might not play in week one. And I hate to use this term because it's such a cop-out thing for anyone with a microphone to say, but it truly is 50-50 as to whether or not Mahomes will be available for week one. It's hard to say. Now, is he going to absolutely push to be available for that week one game? Yeah, 100%. So we'll have to see what that goes. What does a rebound look like in terms of numbers? Brad's asking. That's actually a very good question. I mean, listen, he had 638 receiving yards. Forget about rushing yards for a moment. Let's just focus on the receiving yards. He had 638 yards and 6 touchdowns his rookie year. His second year, missing 3 games, and I'm including the first game, he had 532 yards. Now, in that last game against that he played on Christmas against Denver, he didn't have a single catch. So that counts towards his total for the season. The other game, the Tennessee game, he only had 41 yards. A Chargers game, 35 yards. The other Broncos game in Denver, 25 yards. The game against Buffalo, 23 yards. Like, he had a lot of low numbers this season in some games, below 40, 30 yards. So my hope is that this is someone who could eclipse the 700, 800 yard receiving mark. Because if he can do that, I would say that's a really big step into the right direction for Xavier Worthy. And listen, let's assume Travis Kelce's back too. I don't need a 1,000-yard receiver. If you have 3 guys with 700 to 800 receiving yards, I think that's successful, just as successful as having a 1,000-yard receiver on the team. Because I think the way the Chiefs have tried to construct this team going into the 2025 season was having a bunch of options for Patrick Mahomes. Because the idea was, hey, we're going to have a better offensive line with Josh Simmons now on the team and Jalen Moore as a viable backup. I mean, who are all of the pass catchers coming into this year? At the tight end position, you had Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. Noah Gray had a really good 2024 season. And then for the wide receivers, you had to start off the season, you had Worthy, you had Hollywood, you had Juju, you had Thornton, who had a good training camp. So I think they felt good about him. They also had, well, they didn't really have Jalen Royals ready because he had the knee tendonitis, but they thought, hey, once he could come back, that's someone who had the most impressive training camp. Rashee Rice, who in my opinion had the best training camp this year, once he came back, he was going to give a big boost. Unfortunately, we never saw any of that. We didn't see all of these pass catchers, receivers, and tight ends helping one another. The deep pass game, which we heard all offseason long was coming back, didn't come back. You had a couple nice big plays to Tyquan Thornton. That was it. Let me go to the Kansas City Chiefs stats page. Who had the longest catch of the season? Off the top of my head, I think I would bet Hollywood Brown. I would bet Tyquan Thornton, but I think Hollywood Brown had a couple of really big catches as well. Let's go look. Who had the longest reception of the season? It was Tyquan Thornton, 61 yards. Hollywood Brown had a 51-yard play. I know Hollywood Brown had a really big play against the Chargers in week 1, and he had another big play against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. One was, he had a 49-yard play against the Chargers. That's what I'm thinking of. Where was the 51-yard play? Oh, that's right. The 51-yard play was against the Raiders. That was when Shane Buechele threw that rocket. I remember that one now. I thought he had a big one against Dallas. No, that must have been Xavier Worthy that I'm thinking of. Was it on that fourth down play? Yeah, that was Xavier Worthy. He had a 42-yard reception against the Cowboys. So Thornton had a 61-yard reception at one point. Hollywood had a 51-yard reception at one point. Rashee Rice had a 47-yard play. And then Kelce had a 44-yard reception as well. I think the 44 yards for Kelce, wasn't that a catch and run against the Chargers? I think it was. No, it was not. That was against the Raiders, the 44-yard play. Okay, so there you go. I think now I don't think the Chiefs sit there and say, well, our goal is to have a long play of 75 yards from at least two guys. No, but I think you want to have that for your offense with the amount you invested, the amount of speed that wide receiver room possesses. And I don't know who's all going to come back and whatnot, but and look, here's a name I'll throw in there. Brashard Smith. I know he didn't play much at the running back position until the last game of the season, but we saw him lined up as a receiver a lot this year. And the Chiefs threw how many passes to him? 25. 25 receptions, 35 targets. So he was fairly active in the passing game. He had more receptions than Noah Gray. He had more than Tyquan Thornton, which I don't get that. Tyquan Thornton only had 19 catches for some crazy reason. I can't comprehend that. As a Broncos fan, I respect TF out of you. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not going to lie. The only time I ever rooted for the Broncos was Super Bowl 50 because Chris Harris was on that team, as well as Aqib Talib. But I don't think Broncos fans and Jayhawks fans feel so highly about Aqib Talib anymore. But to answer Brad's question, I think that's the idea for Worthy. Like if Worthy can have anywhere from 700 to 800 receiving yards in 2026, that would be a huge step into the right direction. Anything after that, in my eyes, would be a big bonus. Bob says tight end possession is going to need to be addressed this year. Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting. What is Travis Kelce going to do? Is he going to come back? I think he will. Noah Gray, who signed that extension the year before, he took a big step back, and not all of it was his own fault. I mean, the offense just wasn't good this year. Because I remember Noah Gray in back-to-back weeks had a pair of touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns in the span of 2 weeks, 2 against the Bills, 2 against the Panthers. So it wasn't just his own doing for that to be an issue. Yeah, Joshua, you're right. Can he stay in bounds? That's what I was mentioning earlier. Sideline awareness was a big issue for Xavier Worthy. Listen, you cannot convince me that if Worthy was cut today, all 31 teams would be contacting Worthy's agent. Everyone would love an Xavier Worthy on their team. Like, I'll tell you right now, playing defensive back in football is not easy. Playing against a Tyreek Hill, a Tyquan Thornton, an Xavier Worthy, someone that has that top-tier speed to where they can take the top off of defense, that is difficult. My point is, I would rather have Worthy on my team than having to go against him. And that's why I said earlier, I'm not giving up on Worthy. I have hope for Worthy, and I think he'll bounce back next season. I know some people have been frustrated with Worthy with his injury situations. He's had several of those since being drafted by the Chiefs. What can we expect? What can we expect from him? I don't know. Mason says, I think Kelce has done. His heart isn't in it. He's got a family to get ready for. Listen, a lot of guys in the NFL have families. Now, he's about to marry a multi-billionaire. I mean, would you play a physical sport ever again if you're marrying a multi-billionaire? And listen, I know a big deal is made about Taylor Swift's bank account, but Travis Kelce's made a lot of money too off the field. I mean, the amount of that podcast alone, I don't think people realize this. That New Heights podcast, that took the world by storm real fast. And that was before he dated Taylor Swift. It was already a popular podcast before he started dating Taylor. And with he had the Saturday Night Live gig before dating Taylor. I mean, Travis Kelce's done a lot of things for himself off the field. So yes, and I know there was this rumor, I think from Jordan Schultz, that if Travis Kelce retires today, there are going to be a lot of networks contacting him about being a color analyst. Maybe he could replace Tony Romo. A lot of you guys would probably like that, but I don't know. That's just something to be aware of. Javi says, just be a Bronco for the next month. Nah. Hey, Broncos are in the playoffs. They earned it. Have fun with that. Sasha says, my only hope is that Kelce doesn't want to end it this way. Yeah, I don't think anyone ever wants to end it this way. Oh, there you go, Aaron. Don't think Kelce's going. Yeah, a lot of people don't think Kelce's going. Yeah, listen, nobody wants to go out like that. But how many NFL careers have the storybook Disney ending? Now, even Peyton Manning, who, yes, he finished his career with a Super Bowl win, but that was a terrible season for Peyton Manning. Like, that was a very strong indicator. Yeah, time to go. I don't think it took him very long to make that decision after the Broncos won Super Bowl 50. So, we'll see. I mean, I don't know what an ideal final season is in Travis Kelce's eyes. A lot of people think last year, if they pulled off the three-peat, he would have rode off into the sunset with Taylor, and that would have been the end of his career, but it didn't work out that way. RPOs were more like RPPs. I'm chuckling because I remember in the Herm Edwards era, everyone called it run, pass. And it kind of just reminded me of punt, pass, kick for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, the RPOs were certainly an issue. I mean, what was so difficult about having a Chiefs quarterback line up under center and using the play action? It's like the Chiefs were just allergic to that this season. It made no sense. Hope Mahomes gets healthy as a Bills fan. Good game. Yeah. I bet Mahomes never thought someone in his team would end up in a better financial situation than him. Yeah, probably. No, I still remember that game, the Taylor Swift debut, if you will. I think the announcers even made a funny reference that this might be the first game where Patrick Mahomes is not the most popular guy in the building. So yeah, the Taylor Swift era certainly has been interesting in Kansas City for sure. But I don't know. I just feel like with what you have on this team, with the speed at the receiving core, and again, we don't know who's going to come back. I mean, there is a lot to be desired there, in my opinion. See, Kyle's asking, I want to ask why you believe in Hollywood. The reason I believe in let me just say this. If Hollywood Brown is your number one wide receiver, I'm sorry, you're screwed. Like, I was excited for Hollywood Brown almost 2 years ago when the Chiefs signed him. The reason I believe in Hollywood Brown, not because I think he's your best wide receiver, but because he's going to be in a system where he's not relied on to be the number one guy. You have Xavier Worthy. You have Rashee Rice. You have Travis Kelce, if he comes back, and I think he will. You have Hollywood Brown as another option. Hollywood Brown, yes, is injury prone, unfortunately. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career. But if he's a depth player, I think that really changes the whole time. Same reason why I was excited for Sammy Watkins several years ago, because if Sammy Watkins was your number one wide receiver in 2018, that would not have been a good season for the Kansas City Chiefs offense. But he wasn't your number one wide receiver. He wasn't even your number one pass catcher. Your top two guys were Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Then you had Sammy Watkins contribute. Then you had McCole Hardman, not 2018, but eventually with that group in 2019. Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle. Like, you had a lot of guys you could rely on. And I think Hollywood, because of his speed, it just fits that system. So that's why I still believe in him. Danny says he said Andy runs the offense and makes the play calls. So what OC would change that? Okay, Danny, we addressed this yesterday, but I'll say it again here. You're right. Alex Smith did say that. And I don't think you're at any position to argue Alex Smith because he literally played in that system. He started for 5 years. So you're not about to argue with that guy. But here's let me just show it to you like this. I know you guys on TikTok can't see it, but you look at those numbers. Like there is a big drop off, and not just Patrick Mahomes stats under Nagy, but the entire offense as a whole has dropped. The Chiefs have never been higher than 15th. Here's a little quiz for all of you. When was the last time the Chiefs scored 40 points in a game? I think it was the Taylor Swift debut we alluded to a moment ago against Chicago. And that Chicago team is not the team that it is now. They're a far better team right now than back then. That was an Eberflus-led Chicago team. I mean, this Chiefs team has, like, what we saw from the Chiefs from 2018 to 2022, that was magic right there. They were firing on all cylinders. From 2023, the very first game of 2023, what happened? Receivers started dropping passes. Kadarius Toney could not catch. Sky Moore couldn't catch. Marquez Valdez-Scantling couldn't catch. Justin Watson couldn't catch. A lot of those guys were on the team the previous year. So what happened? I don't think it's some massive coincidence. The Chiefs were just not led by the right coaching staff on the offensive side of the football. That's why Connor Embry got fired. That's why Matt Nagy probably won't be retained by the Chiefs. Yeah, that's a really good point, Robert, because so Robert says, sucks that Mahomes won't be available for OTAs and minicamp to put the necessary work with the receivers to develop long pass chemistry. And that, listen, let's say Mahomes is available in week 1. How in sync are you going to be? And by the way, not only is Mahomes unavailable, Mahomes is your only quarterback under contract. Chris Oladokun is not under contract. Gardner Minshew is not under contract. I mean, you have to have somebody at the quarterback position to work with your guys in OTAs. Like, I know it's not ideal, but trust me when I say one of Kansas City's very first moves this offseason is going to be a quarterback. Because, like right now, a quarterback for OTAs is really important. Never thought we would say that in Kansas City. But that is a feeling right now, given that Patrick Mahomes is not going to be available. I'm glad you're pointing out the dismal numbers under Nagy. And listen, look, I think everyone has to take responsibility for that. It's not just Nagy, but it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a coincidence that the drops and just the lack of production. Look, I can let 2024 slide. There were a shit ton of injuries that nobody could have been ready for. Like they went and got Kareem Hunt that nobody ever thought was ever going to happen again. Nagy never held anyone accountable. It showed big time on Sundays. And look, I mean, is Bieniemy yelling at guys? Is that going to change things? I don't know. I know there are all these rumors about whether or not the Chiefs liked Bieniemy. Look, man, when the Chicago Bears came to Kansas City for the preseason game, I mean, you saw guys go up to Bieniemy before the game. There are pictures from Getty Images of Kelsey hugging Bieniemy. Like that's his father that he lost contact with for 10 years and finally reunited with him. Sure, there may have been some, maybe it wasn't easy working with Bieniemy, but that's because he gave a shit. I mean, again, look at these numbers. 15th in points scored, 9th in total offense in 2023. Then the following year, 15th in points scored, 16th in total offense, and then you were 20th or lower this year. And I recognize Mahomes being out for 3 games really impacted that, but when Mahomes got injured, you were already 15th in points scored, just like the other 2 years. Like, there wasn't improvement being made with the offense. I think that is what's frustrating the most. Delano says we do not even need an offensive coordinator. I don't know about that. Look, the play caller is Andy Reid. Yes. But there's still, some things to work on. Is Noah Gray cuttable? Probably not, because of that contract he signed right before the 2024 season. Andy on Instagram says a new running backs coach could help improve our running back since it's an entire room move. Yeah, maybe. I mean, the Chiefs had, I was about to say do have, but they really had this past year position coaches out of place. Connor Embry, as a former running back in college that was coaching wide receivers. Like, Connor Embry is not a wide receivers coach. He just isn't. Carlos says Mahomes still struggling to find an open receiver. Oh, I agree. I agree with you. And like I said earlier, Mahomes has got to work on that. But I think if the right offensive coordinator was there, let me put it to you guys like this. Maybe Eric Bieniemy doesn't come back. I don't know. But let me just put it to you guys like this. Between 2018 to 2022, when Mahomes took the starting reins and Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator, what repeated mistakes did you see? Whenever the Chiefs lost, the Chiefs did have back-to-back losses a couple of times. But, dude, whenever Patrick Mahomes had a really bad game under Bieniemy, we saw a completely different Mahomes the following week. And I think that was what made Brady so successful. That's what made Montana successful. That's what made Manning successful. Whenever those guys had a bad game, they studied the hell out of the game film from that bad game and figure out what the hell happened. Why did he not have a good game? And it was fixed in practice. And by the time Sunday came around, those guys looked far different than they did the previous week. Things went back to normal for those elite quarterbacks. And the same for Mahomes. But under Nagy from 2023 to now, we just never saw Mahomes play at that same level. Now, I will say this, because you saw it in the last 3 games without Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes masked a lot of the problems on the Chiefs team. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people out there who truly believe that Mahomes needed Andy Reid more than Andy Reid needed Mahomes. Well, what'd you see with this Chiefs offense without Mahomes? I mean, you could make a case Patrick Mahomes is the MVP of the team the last 3 games. The amount of value Mahomes has. Look, it's not an accident that the Chiefs started winning playoff games with Mahomes. They only won 1 with Alex Smith. They were 1-4 before Mahomes arrived in the playoffs under the Andy Reid era. Kimberly says, love Worthy. He's young, needs some guidance, but he has the potential to be great. And I think that's a big reason why they moved on from Connor Embry. Man, I was not expecting to spend this much time on this topic, but you guys have a lot to say on this. Chiefs are allergic to change. Okay, for those commenting on Sammy Watkins, here's my whole thing on this. And I agree with you, Kyle, and I see your comment there. If Sammy Watkins is not on the team, who would have been your number 2 wide receiver? Would it have been Demarcus Robinson, McCole Hardman in 2019? I mean, I don't know. What I do know is I don't think you win Super Bowl 54 the 2019 season without Watkins. Because keep in mind, Tyreek Hill missed the first 5 games due to injuries. Watkins balled out that first game with 3 touchdowns. Now, the only other time Watkins saw the end zone that season, in the regular season, was on a 2-point conversion. But remember that Titans AFC Championship game? That deep pass to Watkins, that sealed the deal, along with a Frank Clark sack. So I don't think you win a Super Bowl without Watkins. I think in a sense, not completely, but I think in a way, Hollywood Brown can bring that kind of dynamic that Sammy Watkins brought for Kansas City's offense in 2018 and 2019. Worthy needs to work on his explosiveness. He is very fast, but not explosive. I don't disagree, Aaron, but I don't think that's the first thing I think of when I think of what Worthy needs to work on. I think a big part of Worthy is the route running, and maybe that's part of what you're referring to, but also just awareness of the sidelines. Like that, a guy with his speed has to be aware of that stuff. Sasha says obviously Nagy needs to go, but do you think Andy has gone complacent and his scheme has gone stale? It definitely went stale. I don't know how much of that is on Andy, how much of it is on Nagy. Because when Alex Smith, some of you guys have been mentioning Alex Smith's comments. When Alex Smith did that interview, he mentioned, yeah, Nagy's getting a lot of blame. But then he said, hey, guys, Andy runs that offense. I don't think Alex Smith intended to come off this way. But the way Alex Smith said it, it was almost like him translating that as, hey, don't blame Nagy, blame Reed. That's who you should blame. I don't think he meant for it to come off that way. And I think he also unintentionally heavily devalued the offensive coordinator position because he said you only have so much input with that offense. Listen, I don't know how much the operation has changed since Alex Smith has left and when Patrick Mahomes took over. I would imagine there's been some changes, maybe not a whole lot. But there's a reason why this team has not been good offensively since they had a new wide receivers coach and a new offensive coordinator since 2023. I mean, the drop-off is there. It's 3 years of evidence. It's on the stat sheet. It's on film. All right, I'll read a couple more, and then we got to move on here. Yeah, they need a QB for the offseason. That never thought that would be a big discussion for Kansas City, but here we are. Jameis Winston for backup QB. Listen, he just did a podcast with Travis Kelce and Jason on New Heights. So maybe off the record, Kelce who tried to convince him. I don't know. Talk Henny into coming out of retirement for QB2. That would be interesting. Get a paycheck for half an off season, maybe. Are you going to mention the fact that Veach has been trash? Oh, come on, Tommy. Listen, I know the last couple of drafts have not been great. I think you've got to acknowledge that. But Veach had a home run draft in 2021 and in 2022. I know a lot of people talk about who the Chiefs have passed on the last couple of years. Man, do you know who the Chiefs have gotten that other teams have passed on? Creed Humphrey was a second-round pick. Nick Bolton was a second-round pick. Trey Smith was a sixth-round pick. Trent McDuffie almost fell out of the first round. Isaiah Pacheco, who was way better his first 2 years than his last 2 years, almost went undrafted. Chris Jones was a second-round pick. Patrick Mahomes, 10 teams passed on Patrick Mahomes before the Chiefs traded up to get him. So Tommy says he's missed on a lot of players. Tommy, go look through every single general manager and who they've selected. Everyone has passed on guys. No one ever bats 1,000 on these drafts. It is very difficult to do. The Chiefs have been lucky to land guys outside of the first round, like Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Chris Jones, Nick Bolton, and they've also missed on guys. I mean, there's no doubt about it. 2020, was it Clyde Edwards-Helaire who they got over Jonathan Taylor? Yes. That's happened, and it's not going to be the last time Veach will miss. He'll miss again, but he'll also get more guys outside of the first round like he has many times. I mean, those things happen. Okay, that's true. That was John Dorsey, but Veach did have a heavy influence back then. I mean, even though it was Dorsey who drafted Mahomes, Veach is heavily credited for originally even noticing him and bringing him to Andy Reid's attention in the first place. Jacoby Brissett, yeah, he's got a lot of starting experience, so that would be an interesting guy to bring in for the offseason. Mahomes, the 2025 MVP, might be the Chiefs MVP, might get the Derek Thomas Award. In all seriousness, I do think Creed Humphrey deserves that. It's on both Andy and Nagy. Listen, it's on everybody. When you go 6-11, there's a lot of blame to go around. And that's why you're seeing some of the changes that are going to be coming this upcoming offseason. You already saw it with Embry. We haven't seen it with any other significant coaching positions yet. The expectation is Nagy is done in Kansas City, so we'll see, but we'll see sign Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, there you go. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers will definitely. Bob says draft a quarterback. Okay, let's take a poll. Simple yes or no. Will Kansas City draft a quarterback this year? You don't have to tell me what round. I mean, you can if you want to. But do you think Kansas City will draft a quarterback this year? If you can get like a Tyler Thigpen style quarterback, because Tyler Thigpen was a 7th round pick by the Vikings, I would not be opposed to it. But the problem is Kansas City does not have a lot of draft picks right now. Now, if they trade Trent McDuffie, a majority of you are saying no. A couple of you are saying yes. A majority of you are saying no. Here's the thing. I'm not opposed if the Chiefs can get more draft picks. But in order to do that, you might have to trade Trent McDuffie. And I know that's not a popular idea, but unfortunately, we've seen it where the Chiefs are not afraid to trade someone. We've seen them trade Tyreek Hill. We've seen them trade L'Jarius Sneed as well as Joe Thuney. Not because they wanted to, but for salary cap purposes, those moves had to be done. So majority of you are saying no. Okay, just curious. Just curious to see what a lot of you guys think there. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to find out. It's going to be interesting. Look, this is really this is the most anxious I've been going into an offseason, not because the Chiefs are coming off a 6-11 season. I mean, that's a big part. But the salary cap is not looking good for the Chiefs. They're going to have to make a lot of adjustments. And I don't know what all of those adjustments include. I do know it includes cutting Jawan Taylor and Mike Dana. That is $29 million saved. Drew Tranquill, that might be a cap casualty that you do not want, but that might have to happen. What do you get out of Trent McDuffie? Can you get a 1? Can you get a second and a third in a package deal? I know a lot of you guys are going to say, hey, Sauce Gardner, they got 2 1s for him. Yes, the Colts did give up 2 1s. They also lost Sauce Gardner for some games due to injury. And listen, there were a lot of things that happened with the Colts, just bad luck in the second half of the season. But I think a lot of teams are looking at the Sauce Gardner trade and saying, yeah, we'll give up something for McDuffie, but not that much. So it is going to be really interesting to see what the salary cap is going to be and how the Chiefs are going to react to it. What are the corresponding moves going to be after the salary cap number officially comes out? That is going to make for a very interesting offseason. So we'll see what ends up happening. Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. It makes every playoff game feel bigger. Last month was a big month for the state of Missouri as DraftKings Sportsbook went live in the Show Me State, and now we are rolling over getting ready for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. And look, if you didn't hop on the train last month or during the wild card round, it is never too late. You still have time to get in on the action and on the fun. In fact, I'm going to give you my favorite game for the divisional round this weekend. I am going San Francisco and Seattle on Saturday night. So a couple of fun facts between these two NFC West rivals. This is going to be their third time playing this season, and they split the regular season series. The 49ers took the game in week 1, and the Seahawks won in week 18. The Seahawks, given that they're coming off a playoff bye, this is going to be their second game in a row against the 49ers. Look, if you're going to watch this game, buckle up, get ready, because this is going to be a fun one. I think it's going to be a shootout, and I am picking Seattle to win. I think both teams will score in the 30s. I think Seattle comes through in the end at home, and they will advance to the NFC Championship game. DraftKings has your back with early exit protection, which means if a player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down with an injury in the first half, you will still get paid in cash. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my promo code ChiefZone. That's code ChiefZone to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 and over. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, welcome back into the Chief Zone podcast. Farzy Vasugian here with you. So I was having conversations on the side with people on TikTok because I can't play commercials on the TikTok side of it. Someone was mentioning the TSS days. Holy shit. So for those who don't know, and I think like less than 1% of you know, this podcast started off on the sportstuff.com. I was 16 years old when this podcast started. This podcast, by the way, I mentioned this the other day. This podcast started in 2007. That was the same year Mike Tomlin got hired by the Steelers. So think how much time has gone since then. And that was, back when, here's a little funny thing about podcasting back then. Whenever I wanted to book a guest, I could not use the word podcast because podcasts and blogs had such a bad rep back in the 2000s. Now, hosting a podcast is not taboo per se. It's cool. And there are a lot of former players and even active players that love going on podcasts. So I was just ahead with the times and all. But back then, if you wanted to book a guest, you could not say podcast. You had to say, and this is going to sound really silly today in 2026, you had to say internet radio show. And I chuckle looking back at that because it's such a goofy substitute for podcast. But you have to say that to make it, to provide some sort of legitimacy with your podcast. You make me want to start my own podcast to drop this real hot fire. Yeah, go for it, man. I mean, nowadays, a lot of people are doing content. If I can do it, so can you. It's not that difficult nowadays to get on YouTube. And you don't have to have, as fancy of a setup as I do. It helps, but it's not required. So, nowadays, anyone can do a podcast. You're seeing a lot more. Do I think the Chiefs are going to get Jeremiah Love? Maybe. I haven't zeroed in on who I think the Chiefs are going to get yet, as I'm trying to adjust this. Jeremiah Love is good. He's really good. I don't know if somehow Jeremiah Love and Ruben Bain Jr. are both available at 9, that might be one of the more difficult decisions the Chiefs will have to make with the number 9 pick. Ruben Bain Jr. looks like a monster truck. I mean, I would rather get hit by a train than get hit by Ruben Bain Jr. I don't think he's going to be available at 9, though. I would be shocked if Ruben Bain is there. I would also be shocked if Jeremiah Love is there. Because I really think the Saints, who pick at 8, one before Kansas City, I think they'll seriously consider thinking about life after Alvin Kamara. Because you just don't see a lot of teams give out an extra contract to running backs anymore. You don't see it often. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Chiefs don't need Love. Stop, get an offensive pass rusher. Get Brees Hall. Listen, I like Brees Hall, and I was bummed out the Chiefs could not get him. But he's going to want a big contract. That's why the Chiefs did not give up a third-round draft pick for him, because they know they're not going to be able to get him back. Like I said earlier, man, the Chiefs are going to have a very quiet free agency period. They just will. And, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know. Yeah, I like Bailey. David Bailey, that is. I think he certainly would be good. Ruben Bain Jr. is certainly the preference, but if he's not available and if Jeremiah Love's not available, yeah, sure, I would not be opposed to having Ruben Bain Jr. I'm seeing a lot of people say Carson Tate. I'm sorry, not Carson Tate, Carnell Tate. Should the Chiefs really get a wide receiver in the first round? They just did, not this most recent draft, but the draft before. And before that, they used a second-round pick on Rice. Now, I know Rice's future is very uncertain at the moment. I think they're trying to gather information on what the hell happened with him and his ex-lover. Do I think Bain is worth trading up for? Okay, here's the problem. You already have the 9th pick. If you want to go even higher, what are you willing to give up? That is not going to be easy. You're going to have to give up something very significant to get into the top 5 or wherever you think Ruben Bain Jr. is going to fall. I'm looking at ESPN's mock draft right now. They have Fernando Mendoza obviously going number 1 to the Raiders. They have Dante Moore going to the Jets. Now, unfortunately for the Jets, Dante Moore announced today that he is returning to Oregon. And I think that was a big shock to a lot of people because, look, you had an opportunity to become the number 2 pick in the draft and potentially get a big contract in 3 or 4 years. So he's going to put that off to the side for 1 more year. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt because that might ruin his chances. Now, looking at this mock draft here, they have David Bailey going number 7 to the Commanders, Jeremiah Love going number 8 to the Saints, and the Chiefs getting Ruben Bain Jr. at 9. Now, Dante Moore returning to Oregon, that might change things a lot. What would the Jets do at number 2? I would not put it past them to try to get Carnell Tate. I mean, they don't have to try. The Raiders are getting it. They're getting Fernando Mendoza. But would they get Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson? Guys who are expected to go in the top 10? Would they want Jeremiah Love to replace Brees Hall? Because I think I saw on ESPN's ranking, Jeremiah Love is the number 1 rated player coming into this draft. But there aren't a lot of teams in desperate need of a running back. The Jets need a quarterback. Everybody knows that. But if Dante Moore is not available, which he won't be, would they go and get Jeremiah Love with the number 2 pick? I think that's something to be aware of because I know the popular vote for the Chiefs is to get Jeremiah Love. Oh, no, I mentioned right tackle. Here's something to be aware of. To answer your question, Tommy, on right tackle, what we think as fans in the media, what we think is a need, the teams might not feel the exact same way. So, listen, I've actually mentioned on this podcast that right tackle is something the Chiefs need to look at. But how confident are the Chiefs in either Jalen Moore or Esapole to be their right tackle? I don't know. I mean, based off what we saw last year, which I know is not a whole lot, but we saw Jalen Moore play some games at offensive tackle this year. Is that someone they feel confident in? They signed him to a 2-year deal worth $20 million. They're about to cut Juwan Taylor. By the way, for those of you asking for my picks for this weekend's game, I'll get into that shortly. I'll give you guys my DraftKings picks for this weekend's game. By the way, we went 6-0 with our picks last week. We're going to try to go 4-0, try to make it 10-0 altogether. So you guys have been asking for my picks. Whenever you go undefeated for a weekend, people want to know your picks for the following week. So I'll share that shortly. The Dante Moore announcement, that's bad news for Kansas City, but I'm seeing some people panic like it's the end of the world. Let's slow down a little bit here. You still have the 9th pick in the draft. You will get someone good. There's no way you don't. You're absolutely going to get someone. Roger says, serious question. Are the Chiefs even considering a change at OC? Yes, they will. The word on the street is Nagy's not expected to return to Kansas City, even if he doesn't get a head coaching job. NFL Network reported that he wants to go to a team to be if he's not a head coach, to be an offensive coordinator where he gets to be the play caller. So that's just something to be aware of. Maction says, I'm just wondering why the Chiefs always get these guys. They pay them and then they don't play them. Yeah, that was a theme of 2025. You get guys like Jalen Royals. You get guys like Brashard Smith. Jalen Moore, he got playing time. Was it the way the Chiefs intended it to be? No, not really. Josh Simmons had a personal matter that he had to miss 4 games for, and then he got hurt on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. So Jalen Moore ended up getting a lot of playing time because I think Juwan Taylor got hurt around that same time as well. So you saw Wanya Morris get some playing time, and on the first play of the Sunday Night Football game against the Texans, Wanya gets hurt. Esapole gets in there. Pole did real well against Danielle Hunter. When you watch that game, did you hear Danielle Hunter's name in that game? No. Now he's certainly had his moments as a rookie. So we'll see what the future holds for Esapole. I think the idea is for the Chiefs to have Jalen Moore be their right tackle. I would be shocked if they go elsewhere. And Esapole is a swing tackle that's available for you. By the way, you know who else looked really good? For the second year in a row, Hunter Norzad started in Week 18 for the Chiefs. Last year, he started against the Broncos. Remember that game? The Chiefs had nothing to play for. They had the number 1 seed. But the Broncos, it was life or death for them. It was playoffs or go home. And I know the following weekend was not a good game for them because they got blown out by the Bills. We're getting that rematch this weekend. But they had something to play for in that Week 18 game. Hunter Norzad, he was the center. So Creed Humphrey, and I've got to backtrack a little bit. Hunter Norzad did not start that game. The Chiefs still had their starting offensive lineman in there, but after a series, they took the starting offensive lineman out. So it almost like he started the game. Hunter Norzad had some low snaps in that game when he filled in for Creed Humphrey, but his pass blocking was great. And he looked good in that Raiders game too this year, in the Week 18 Raiders game. So I think Hunter Norzad proved that he is a really good interior offensive lineman. And I think that's someone who is going to replace Mike Caliendo as the primary backup guard and someone who's going to be on speed dial if a guard goes down due to injury. So I like Norzad better as a guard than a center. I do think the Chiefs need a new backup center. I would not be shocked if on day 4, the Chiefs are drafting a center. Not to replace Creed Humphrey, but just to have a more viable backup behind Creed Humphrey and let Hunter Norzad focus on being a guard, a backup guard, instead of being a backup center. Persian from another mother. Damn right, Joshua. Air horns for that. I already knew you were. Oh, there you go. I think our O-line is set. No reason to take an O-line within the first 3 rounds. I think you're right. I think the right tackle position does belong to Jalen Moore. I know that's not the most thrilling pick, but I think that's what the Chiefs are going to end up going with. So I made a post today talking about Omar Norman Lott. While we're on the topic of, draft picks from recent years, Omar Norman Lott started the season off with an injury, missed the first couple of games. And then when he came back, his first game was in week 2, actually, against the Eagles, because if you remember, he delivered that big hit to Jalen Hurts. And Omar Norman-Lott got after the quarterback quite a bit this year. Now, unfortunately, Omar Norman-Lott only played 5 games this year. I was excited for Omar Norman-Lott. He was my second-round pick on my mock draft to come to Kansas City. And if you go back and look, Omar Norman-Lott, and I know Joe Cullen, the defensive line coach, mentioned this, Omar Norman-Lott had the highest win pressure rate of any defensive tackle in college football in 2024. So I was pretty excited when the Chiefs got him in the draft last year. The problem is, Omar Norman-Lott dealt with multiple injuries, dealt with a season-ending torn ACL injury against the Raiders in week 7. I know the Chiefs have had some defensive line problems, hence why a lot of people are wondering if David Bailey or Reuben Bain Jr. would be considered with the number 9 pick. You drafted Ashton Gelati in the 3rd round, and I think, he showed some flashes, I thought. You drafted Omar Norman-Lott with the 2nd round pick last year. I think Omar Norman-Lott can be a good replacement for Turk Wharton right beside Chris Jones. But availability is important. If he's not available, that's going to hurt this Chiefs defensive line. And I think if Omar Norman-Lott stays healthy and plays a full season, that'll help Chris Jones. That'll also help George Karlaftis. And I don't know who the other primary defensive end is going to be opposite of Karlaftis, whether it's going to be Gelati, Reuben Bain Jr., David Bailey. If Charles Omenihu comes back in, I don't know. Unfortunately, Omenihu was not good this year compared to other years that he's been a part of the team. Oh yeah, I forgot about FAU, who, by the way, is your 1st round pick from a couple of years ago and was playing in the second half of preseason games this year. That's not good. That is not good. I think FAU is going to still be on the team because he's on a rookie deal, and it's not going to cost you much, having him as part of your depth. But Roger's asking, where's Jerick McKinnon these days? We never struggled in the red zone with McKinnon. Listen, McKinnon was great in 2022. He came back in 2023 with a new offensive coordinator, wasn't the same guy. Now I think McKinnon has to be 35 by now. He's 33, he turns 34 in May. So that is someone that's, he hasn't played for a couple of years, and there was a reason for that. This team needs another Frank Clark clone. Yeah, that definitely is true. You need a defensive line that can get a 4-man rush. You need a defensive line that's not going to rely on blitz every time. And then when you do blitz, which is the Spag special with Nick Bolton, with whoever else is going to be part of your secondary, that kind of seems bleak at the moment. It's going to help out those linebackers quite a lot, in my opinion, as well as the secondary. I'm nervous to see Leo Chenal go. I hope they can keep him because he's been really underrated on defense, and he's been a very important part of your special teams. Because remember, he had that blocked kick against the Broncos last year. He had the blocked PAT in Super Bowl 58. If he doesn't block that PAT, the Chiefs cannot tie with Butker at the end of regulation. They have to throw 1 or 2 passes in the end zone to try to win in Super Bowl 58. Because that game does not go to overtime if it wasn't for Leo Chenal. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Chiefs can prioritize him and try to get him to come back. But we'll have to see. Yeah, FAU, I agree, is a bust. I try to be very patient on those things, but it has gotten to the point where, you already know what you have with him. It's not going to get any better. They might bring Snead back. Listen, I'm a huge fan of L'Jarius Snead and what he did in Kansas City. But my God, he missed a bunch of time in Tennessee. How many games did he play in Tennessee? I think he only played 5 last year. He played 5 games last year and 7 games this year. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I do not want L'Jarius Sneed back. I love his backstory, love everything he's done with the team. I know he got in a little bit of trouble. I don't know all the details off the field. I don't know if that's someone I want on the team right now. I'm not sure about that. There are some things. Yeah, I mean, listen, the Chiefs already, they're dealing with the Rashee Rice thing. Again, we don't know what happened. I want to be very clear on that. But there are a lot of things to figure out on that front there. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. It makes every playoff game feel bigger. Last month was a big month for the state of Missouri as DraftKings Sportsbook went live in the Show Me State, and now we are rolling over getting ready for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. And look, if you didn't hop on the train last month or during the wild card round, it is never too late. You still have time to get in on the action and on the fun. I went 6-0 with my wild card picks last weekend, and now I'm going to give you my picks for the 4 divisional round games this weekend. Kicking off the division round, we have the Bills and the Broncos. Do not be surprised if this is a low-scoring game. I'm going to pick Josh Allen and the Bills to come through in this one on the road. 49ers at the Seahawks. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be the best game of the divisional round. I'm picking Seattle in this one. Then on Sunday, we have the Texans visiting the Patriots. The Texans are coming off a dominant defensive performance. The Patriots have a very good defense too. Not many people talk about their defense as much. I would not be surprised if this is going to be another low-scoring divisional round game, but I think the Patriots will win at home. And to wrap things up, you have the Rams visiting the Bears. The Bears have been doing pretty well this season, playing better than most people expected, but I do think it comes to an end. I think that high-powered Rams offense is going to go into Chicago and put up a lot of points, and I think Chicago will compete, but it won't be enough to win. I think the Rams advance to the NFC title game. DraftKings has your back with early exit protection, which means if a player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down with an injury in the first half, you will still get paid in cash. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my promo code ChiefZone. That's code ChiefZone to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 and over. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, welcome back into the Chiefs Zone podcast. Farzin Vasugian here to wrap things up here. To recap, we spent some time talking about the head coaching carousel right now. It appears that the New York Giants have heavy interest in John Harbaugh. And I said earlier, I mean, unless you're the Baltimore Ravens, you probably know who you want to pick if you're the Ravens. But the first domino effect is probably going to be Harbaugh. Once Harbaugh picks his destination for 2026 and beyond, I think then you'll finally start to see a lot of other head coaches get hired and even assistant coaches that'll shortly get hired after that. We talked about Xavier Worthy today. He had shoulder surgery to help work on that torn labrum, fixing that injury right there. Worthy had fewer receiving yards in his second year compared to his rookie year. However, he had a higher yards per catch average, almost 2 yards better than the year before. I think with his speed, you certainly would like to utilize that more. Now, what is Kansas City's wide receiver room going to look like? We don't know. We'll see in the coming days what the Chiefs are going to do, coming weeks, I should say, with their free agents. Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, a lot of guys to consider. I know Nico Remigio, a receiver and a returner. I know a couple of you guys were mentioning his name as well in tonight's chat. Someone to just be aware of. We spent some good amount of time talking about the draft. In fact, listen, I think the Chiefs have options. Even with Dante Moore announcing that he is returning to Oregon, yes, that's bad news for Kansas City because that means the Jets could go and get Jeremiah Love to replace Breece Hall moving forward. I still think, listen, if you have the number 9 pick, you have good options that'll be there for you. Might be difficult to expect both Ruben Bain and Jeremiah Love to be available with the number 9 pick. I think David Bailey would be a good option if he's available there. But if not, then that is probably time to consider trading down. I know we've talked about trading Trent McDuffie a lot in recent weeks. I don't know when Trent McDuffie's going to get traded. Is it possible he gets traded on draft day? That's certainly reasonable to expect, because in that situation, maybe McDuffie can be used as trade bait, and there might be a team that there might be a player the Chiefs really like, and they might use Trent McDuffie to trade him away and trade up somewhere in the draft. Don't know exactly when that's going to be. First round, maybe early second round. If the Chiefs can trade McDuffie for a pick within the first 40, so anywhere in the first round or early second, anywhere in the top 6 or top 8 rather in the second round, I think that would be a good trade. Now, if you're going to get a second round pick, I think you should be able to demand a third round pick as well for Trent McDuffie. No, he doesn't have the interception numbers to show for it, but he does a lot of other things great. I mean, he does a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet. And listen, NFL teams recognize that. Maybe fans in the media don't recognize it as much, but anyone that's paid attention and actually watches the games can see that with Trent McDuffie. So we'll see. There are a lot of things. Look, like I said earlier tonight, this is the most anxious I am for the Chiefs going into the offseason, not because of their 6-11 record that they're coming off of, but I think more so because their salary cap situation. It's not in a good spot. They are $50 million over the cap, the most by any team in the NFL. Now, yes, cutting Mike Dana, cutting Jawan Taylor, that will help a lot. Now, are you going to again restructure Patrick Mahomes' contract? Are you going to restructure Chris Jones' contract also for the second year in a row for Jones? And I don't know how many years in a row it's been for Mahomes. But you can't keep doing that, because all you're really doing is kicking the can down the road and hurting the 2027 cap and the 2028 cap. Yes, we don't care about those years this exact moment, but you can't just put yourself in a bind in the future, because even if you win a Super Bowl next season, you still want to be competitive those following years and be able to be active in free agency those other years as well. That is something the Chiefs have to figure out. Maybe it becomes a situation where Chris Jones gets cut before the end of his 5-year deal with the Chiefs. I don't know. I mean, there is a lot to figure out on that front. There's a lot for Brett Veach to figure out this offseason. I do not envy Brett Veach. This is going to be, listen, I'll say this for Veach. He dug the Chiefs out of a really bad situation when he first took over as the general manager with the salary cap and all of that. Remember that one-off season? The Chiefs had $177 in cap room, not $177,000, $177. I mean, less than a PS5, less than a video game system. So that's where it hurts the most, is you are $50 million over the cap, and there's a lot to figure out there. By the way, before we get out of here, real quickly, no promises yet, but we are working on getting a special guest for Friday's podcast. We're working on getting a former Chief, and I think Friday is when it'll be. So normally what we do is the Red Friday live chat on Friday's podcast, or technically it's not a podcast. It's just a live stream. We don't upload the Red Friday live chat to the Red Friday Q&A live chat, to Apple and Spotify. However, if there's breaking news or if we have a special guest, we will combine the podcast and the Red Friday Q&A live chat. We might do that this weekend, depending on the special guest we have. We might just do a whole separate podcast with that person. Not 100% sure, but that is something to be aware of. So we might have 2 live streams for you on Friday. So we'll figure all of that out, but just something to be aware of in the coming days. But we will have the Red Friday Q&A live chat Friday at 5 a.m. Central Time. So you guys got a question you want to ask me? I know a lot of you guys asked questions and we didn't get to them. We make an effort to get every single question answered on that live stream. So join me for that. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. I see Thomas is asking, is there an update on the live show? Yeah, there is. And I can't say much right now. Not at liberty to say. At 5 a.m. Did I say 5 a.m.? I meant 5 p.m. Thank you, Brad. Yeah, 5 a.m. would not work. 5 a.m. would be bad. Our ratings would be better. Is it podcast or internet radio? That's funny. To answer Thomas's question, let me just say this. In terms of making progress for the live show, we're at the point now where we're talking about logistics. Again, nothing is official. We still have a lot of things to unpack and figure out, but we are starting to turn the wheels on trying to get it to the finish line. So for those of you who have been enthusiastic about it, thank you. Let me just say this. The event organizers are aware that you guys want this to happen because they saw me post asking you guys if you would be interested in a live show, and they saw the responses. They're aware that you guys want it to happen. And I told them every podcast people are asking about updates for the live show. So we're working on it. It is going to be coming very soon. So hopefully it happens. Listen, my goal is to announce it as soon as possible because for those of you who are out of town, even those of you who are in town, I want you guys to be aware of the date as early as possible so you can make plans. For those of you who are in town, out of town, would love for all of you guys to attend if possible. And that may not be our only live show. We're in talks with a couple of people about trying to make things like that happen. So stay tuned for that. Yes, there will be a charge. I don't know what the price will be exactly, but we'll figure all of that out when it is put together. I will say this. The venue that we could possibly be doing our first live show at is a massive opportunity, not just for you guys to be able to witness a live show, but also for me to get the podcast out to a lot of new eyes. This is like it's almost like back when high school players could go straight to the NBA. This is a pretty big first live show we could be doing. That's huge. So my goal is to let you guys know as fast as possible. I promise you, as soon as we can get the official word out, we will. So thank you guys. I see the excitement for it right now, and that truly means a lot. So we'll see what it is. We'll see what we're gonna do. Hopefully, we can make it happen sometime this spring. That's all I can say. All right, I'm Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. I will talk to you all this weekend. We will have a Red Friday Q&A live chat. We might have a podcast as well earlier in the day, so just be aware of that. I will talk to you all later. Take care.